Hey, Fidelity, how can I remember to invest every month?
With the Fidelity app, you can choose a schedule and set up recurring investments in stocks and ETFs.
Oh, that sounds easier than I thought.
You got this.
Yeah, I do. Now, where did I put my keys?
You will find them where you left them.
Investing involves risk, including risk of loss. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC, member NYSE, SIPC.
This episode is brought to you by Starbucks. Smooth, bright, deliciously crafted. Introducing Starbucks Sansera Blend, their smoothest, brightest coffee yet. It's a new kind of light roast, one that's packed with so much flavor, it shines no matter how you brew it. So go ahead and try it hot, iced, black, or with a splash of creamer. Visit athome.starbucks.com/Sansera-blend-coffee to bring Starbucks Sansera Blend home.
Atheists, agnostics, long-haired weirdos, short-haired weirdos, vandals, hooligans.
The government, hug the government, love the government, hug the government, love the government.
Welcome to The Politics Guys, a place for bipartisan, rational, and civil debate on American politics and policy. I'm Trey Orndorff, a political scientist at Oklahoma Christian University, and I'm joined by Justin Holmes, a professor of political science at the University of Northern Iowa. Well, Justin, this is the exclusive show that just couldn't stop. It's going to be packed. It's going to be packed.
You'll pay for the whole seat, but you'll only need the edge.
Yes, exactly. We got through one of the court cases in the main show last weekend. And so here we're going to be taking on the other two major cases, Mahmoud versus Taylor, and Free Speech Coalition versus Paxton. And I think we'll get through these a little bit quicker. But, and we did Trump versus Casa first because it is such a critical case. But these are not teeny. They're just maybe not as critical as who gets to be a citizen. I don't know. I mean, Mahmoud is obviously an important one. So let's jump into that right off the bat. So in another 6-3 decision this past weekend, the Supreme Court ruled that public schools place an unconstitutional burden on parents' exercise of free speech by submitting their children to lessons that include LGBTQ plus themes, specifically and most importantly, LGBTQ plus books. Well, the new case now heads back to district court, as did Trump versus Casa that we talked about on the weekend. It is clear where the majority stands. The majority, writing for the majority, said that parents have, quote, shown that they are very likely to succeed in their free exercise of religion claims. The key is that the board has not included the ability to opt out of it as it does for other topics. Now, the minority, penned by Sotomayor, argue that the ruling will create, quote, chaos because it will force public schools to require advance notice and opt out of every lesson plan or storyline that might implicate a parent's religious belief. As she puts it, quote, today's ruling threatens the very essence of public education. The court, in effect, constitutionalized a parental veto power over curricular choices better left to the democratic process and local administration, end quote. Now, the case emerged from a lawsuit filed from Muslims, Jews, and Christian parents in Montgomery County after the schools introduced 2 books on same-sex marriage in a pre-kindergarten class. Now, I think there's a lot to talk about here potentially, Justin. I mean, not as much as what we had in Casa, but still some. But I'm going to start this a little differently than the legal side. And I have argued this on the show for ever. And I know that I am not in the majority, but I'm going to stake this out again. As a scholar, an educator, and as a parent, as a person of faith, this idea that everybody seems to have that education is going to be somehow value neutral is the biggest American pipe dream that we have ever had. And this idea that we can somehow democratize a public faith, it goes way back in history. I mean, that's precisely what several framers were hoping for. And so here's my problem with these kinds of cases, Justin. Ken knows this bugaboo with me. Public schools fail in part because it's impossible to do either what the majority or the minority suggests is the goal, right? So the minority suggests, look, you got to use the democratic process to educate people. Well, here's the deal. Education isn't a democratic process. In trying to vote the values into the educational system has never worked. And likewise, the idea of the majority that you're somehow going to have education that is going to be, for every value that you disagree with, you get to have your kiddo come out of the lessons is equally impossible because we've put public education in an impossible location. So, for example, at the beginning of every show, I talk about I work at Oklahoma Christian University. I work here in part because of its value sets, right? Down the road from here at OC, there's OBU. It's a Baptist university. They are similar to us, but they are certainly not the same exact value sets that we have. And then up the street from us is yet another university that has radically different values than either OC or OBU, right? To try to force all three of those institutions to be identical, to have some kind of, identical values through some democratic vote would actually undermine the very value that they bring. I tell this to students all the time. They come in and they want to know, hey, or parents want to know, why should my student go to OC? And my answer is, I'm interested in you as a whole person inside of a value frame. And that's the larger project. And if you're interested in that, you're going to love it here. And if if either your values don't align with that, or if you don't want to do that, you're going to hate it here, right? I'm honest with everybody. But if you're going to be a good professor, and I think you probably agree with this, Justin, you're going to try to help students achieve a version of the good. And not everybody's going to agree with my conception of the good. I can exist with other people who disagree with my conception of the good as long as they're willing to exist with me, recognizing my good. But the problem is public schools, by their very nature, we want them to be these somehow good, neutral institutions. Or I think more honestly, what we historically have ended up with is we want some kind of civil religion-ish values that we all agree on, but we never have, and we never will. There's my very uncourt take on this court case.
How do you top your love for your cat? With a cascade of decadent, savory gravy over a mouth-watering mousse pâté. Fancy Feast gems. 2 gourmet pâtés in one convenient pack. Simply peel and plate to reveal a pyramid shape that makes eating delightful and pamper her with an experience as extraordinary as she is. Turn the everyday into the extraordinary with Fancy Feast gems.
This episode is brought to you by GM Genuine Parts and AC Delco. Get the most out of your vehicle with GM Genuine Parts and AC Delco original equipment. The only parts designed, engineered, tested, and backed by General Motors. You can find your perfect fit for most makes and models and choose from 3 tiers of parts, including GM OE or gold and silver aftermarket parts. Visit gmparts.com for more information.
No, and I'm kind of. I think I'm kind of. If I'm following, I mean, I agree with. I think a lot of what you've gotten. I'm not sure where your end point with this is, exactly, but I'm at a public, and we have a lot of constraints on what you can do in terms of values, there and getting more. But we do have a set of guiding principles, and it is. I mean, we are cognizant of. It is a whole person kind of education. It's not a religious whole person, but we do try to do some of that. Civic engagement, civic. Making you.
But you don't have to be religious. I mean, just because you or somebody else. I mean,
because we're gonna come to that in a minute. In this probably.
Yeah, my assumption is you don't have to be religious to take a value position. I think that's one of the problems.
Right.
Anyway, sorry. Yeah.
No, and Actually, something that I have in mind, with this case, I am someone who is not religious. I'm not devout in my irreligiosity, in that sense.
So
I'm no Christopher.
You're not
a devout
theist.
theist. I'm no Christopher. Yeah, no Dawkins, no Hitchens, etc. Happy to coexist. But yeah, I very much. I mean, that's something that I bristle at. This idea that that means you don't have values or don't have things that are dear to you or principles or things. And I think in a public, I mean, we are. Certainly, we're not doing religion. I mean, you can study some religious stuff, but we're not. But yeah, I mean, we have a backdrop of values, and I suppose where K-12 and college is different is to an extent. Well, they're different in a lot of ways. It's a different audience. It's a different point of.
Well, you have an assumption in college, and this is also a legal assumption that you have agents who are independent reasoning as opposed to non-independent reasoning.
Right. Exactly. And, beyond that, I mean, there's no compulsion. You're not compelled to go to college.
You can leave whenever you want. Yeah.
you are compelled to go to high school at least through you're 16, so there's certainly some differences there, and I think different conceptions of academic freedom, but I think there are a lot of this. I think you're absolutely right. I mean, we're doing values one way or the other, I mean, even if they're sort of banal, there are going to be values in there, and it's going to be contested, and it's not just around sexuality. I mean, that's the moment, but gosh, we've been through this with evolution and things, I mean, it's in history curricula, I mean,
oh my heavens. Yeah. Well, and that's an ongoing one too. Now I want to continue talking about this, Justin, but I need to pause this for just a second because this ends our ad supported preview of the supporters exclusive show. So if you want to listen to the rest of this conversation and get to hear more about free speech coalition versus Paxton, if you want to get in to the mayor of New York, we've got that coming up, but you got to be a supporter of the show. So just take a couple of minutes, hit there and take a look at the show notes. You'll see a link. Click on that and you can become a supporter nearly instantaneously and finish the rest of this episode. And we'd love to have you. You get a lot of other kind of perks too. You're going to see all of that down there when you click through the link in the show notes, or you can head over to politicsguys.com/support and see all the different kinds of levels of support. You can also hit us up on Patreon and you can find us that way. As always, you can always email us at mail@politicsguys.com. Your questions, issues, or if you'd like to listen to the rest of the show, but you're not in a financial place to do so to support us, please just reach out and we can set that up. Please rate, review, and subscribe. I appreciate that, and the show appreciates it deeply. As always, I want to have a shout out to our incredible executive producers who are Wilma Moreno, Daniel Toe, Ryan Beasley, Don Oglesby, Derek Schmidt, Dakota Heath, Jason Chrysler, Dave Dean, Jeremy Larson, and Brian Matza. Thank you guys each so much. We'll be back with a full episode this weekend. I hope you'll join us then.
This podcast is part of the Democracy Group,